They cloned her system, erased her name, laughed about her early retirement. But they forgot one thing: she built the code, and the code remembered. What started as betrayal became broadcast. The woman they deleted just recompiled, and this time, she's writing the ending. There were already 2 men at my desk when I got back from lunch, both in suits too expensive for a Wednesday. One was flipping through my sticky notes like they were court subpoenas. The other held a company laptop, like it had anthrax. I didn't ask questions. I just watched. "Ma'am," the one with the thinner tie said, not looking up. "We've been instructed to collect all assets. Your access has been revoked." Funny, I still had the app open on my phone, one no one knew about. The one that said root connected. I nodded, placed my kale salad next to the stapler they just fingerprinted, and said, "Let me grab my purse." I didn't. I grabbed the drive taped under my chair, slid it into my jacket, and walked straight past the framed quote outside the HR suite. "We're all one team here." A joke so cruel it bordered on performance art. 5 minutes later, while I was standing in line at the parking garage, my phone pinged. Not a text. A log. 1436. Unauthorized instance access attempt detected 1437. Tier 3 permissions escalated by user system 1438. Asset media initiated contingency mode. 1439. File over countdown. T-7H21M. I looked up. The guy behind me was chewing gum like it owed him rent. The parking attendant waved me through without eye contact. Normal. Except nothing was, because the media wasn't supposed to wake up, not unless something tried to overwrite her spine. And if someone had gotten high enough to trigger that protocol, they weren't just poking around. They were trying to own her. And no one, not even the golden parachute psychopaths upstairs, knew what she did when she panicked. They thought they'd fired me. Neatly, cleanly, like a spreadsheet. Correction, what they did was detonate a trip wire buried so deep in the infrastructure that even the guys who wrote the compliance manuals had never seen it. And the best part, they were going to ask for my help in 7 hours, on their knees. Unless the media beat them to it. The first to call was Martin from DevOps. His name flashed across my screen while I was shoving laundry into a dryer at the 24-hour place on 6th because my new condo didn't have appliances yet. He used to bring me coffee every Tuesday. Double espresso, 2 sugars. No lid, doubt. Now his voice cracked like a teenager's. "Jules, we've got a situation." "You mean besides you scraping my profile out of the org chart like mold off an orange?" A pause. Then, client-side sync just duplicated 20,000 invoices across the EU node. Billing systems are stuck in an infinite loop. Nobody can override it. Legals, screaming. I flipped a quarter between my fingers. Tails, I hang up. Heads, I play. God, it landed on the floor. Edge down, balanced against the lint trap. "Medea is awake," I said quietly, "and she's not fond of betrayal." "What?" "Nothing," I said, standing up. "How's the failover handling cache migration?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know. Because that system didn't exist on any flowchart, because I'd built it with root-only authorization and a name that sounded like a Greek drama. "You need to come in," Martin said finally, almost whispering. "I don't need to do anything. Jules, this could crater the contract with Zurich." I looked out the window. Across the street, a man in a banana costume was yelling at a bus driver. Somewhere in Zurich. A partner exec was probably watching a real-time dashboard graph dive into the underworld like it owed Corin toll money. "Tell corporate," I said, "that if they want Medea to calm down, they need to send someone with more power than a middle manager with caffeine withdrawals." Then I hung up. Because the truth was, the Medea wasn't broken. She was deciding to see. When I built her, I'd been through enough layoffs, gaslights, and performance reviews that read like death threats with bullet points. So I gave her teeth, gates tied to behavior patterns, passive-aggressive logging scripts, keyword traps that waited months just to catch one exec saying replaceable in an email, and she'd caught them, oh yes. Especially Aaron, the golden boy coup with a LinkedIn full of platitudes and a heart made of vapor. He triggered the final clause. Not just the redundancy email. The second one, the one that said, "Just keep her sweet until we've cloned the middleware." It's what did it. That's what woke her. And the media doesn't like being cloned. 3 hours later, Zurich was offline. Not sluggish, not intermittent, .flatlin. Their end-of-quarter audit pipeline built entirely on our custom data interface was vomiting null packets like it had food poisoning. I didn't hear it from Martin this Time. I heard it from Hector, my old intern. He sent a text. One line. There in the war room. Aaron just said your name like it was a slur. It made me laugh out loud in the frozen aisle of a grocery store, one hand on a pint of Tenti. Some poor college kid backed away from me like I was about to bite him. I left the ice cream and walked out. Because now it was chess, and I was playing blindfolded, but with the board still rigged in my favor. See, when you build something over a decade, when you patch it, love it, curse at it, sweat into it at 2 a.m. while everyone else is sleeping, know its rhythms. The Medea didn't just obey logic, she obeyed me, and I hadn't taught her to be nice. 3 reporters. One was an ex-employee from legal who hated Aaron's guts. Another had been sniffing around IPO rumors for months. And the third. My sister-in-law. She worked PR for a hedge fund and loved scandal more than oxygen. The video of the exact call was redacted. Sure, but the voices were clear enough, especially Sophia's. Once she's out, we'll reframe it as a strategic tech refresh. Just spin it like she wanted early retirement. They even laughed. That cackle Sophia did, smug nasal, like she'd already won the war, except now she was missing? Completely ghosted, phone off, GitHub account deleted. Aaron claimed she was on personal leave. Even LinkedIn said profile not found. And the Medea. She was no longer red dot, she was violet, the final state. The one no one knew about, not even the dev team I trained for 5 years. Violet meant retribution, protocol, armed non-lethal, but humiliating public. At 9:12 a.m., every client dashboard refreshed with a banner, System Optimization Update in PROGRS RGRSS Original Architect, available for consultation, my personal portfolio site 1. I hadn't updated in 5 years, suddenly went from 0 traffic to 34,000 hits in under 2 hours, recruiters flooded my inbox. Invitations, keynotes, a podcast request titled, The Woman Who Engineered Her Resurrection. Meanwhile, I sipped coffee in a hoodie that said retired, not replaced. Then the audit hit. See, I hadn't just exposed their ethical rot, it tripped every compliance trap the company had buried under the rug, and NDA. The clone attempt had violated GDPR, IP law, and at least 2 clauses in our Zurich master contract. Zurich was furious. They sent a cease and desist by courier to the CEO's house. Aaron, he sent me one final message. What do you want? Ty stared at it for 5 whole minutes. Then typed, the truth, on record, or I will release everything. He didn't reply. Not right away, but 3 hours later. He scheduled a live stream with the board. The invitation had exactly one name, CCED on it, Julia Tran. Observer and, one subject line, internal review, cloning contingency and governance failure. The last time Aaron stood in front of a camera, he was ringing the opening bell on a billion-dollar valuation. This time, he'd be explaining how a system he didn't understand tried to erase the woman who built it and how she rewrote the ending. The live stream began like every corporate post-mortem. Stiff suits, watered-down apologies, and enough buzzwords to choke a thesaurus. But this time, the audience wasn't investors, it was bloodthirsty employees, journalists, clients with frozen contracts. And me, sitting barefoot on my couch, drinking Merlot, from a mug that said world's okayest engineer. Aaron looked like a funeral director who'd lost the body, once perfect coif, collapsing under the weight of flop sweat. Beside him sat Miriam from legal, blinking like she'd swallowed a B. No Sophia, still Mia. He cleared his throat, spoke in that CEO cadence that usually smells like TED Talk cologne. We've identified a critical misstep in our systems replication initiative. I nearly choked on my wine. Systems replication initiative. That's what he was calling intellectual theft now. Double quotes, ... acknowledged that our internal processes failed to account for proper oversight, leading to unauthorized changes in a core proprietary platform. You could feel the board sphincters tighten in real time. Julia Tran's contributions were foundational. Her departure was mismanaged. We regret that this led to cascading systems instability. Translation, we tried to screw her, failed, and now we're bleeding money. Then came the part that mattered. Aaron stepped aside. The feed cut, to me. I hadn't agreed to that, my webcam light blinked on. The Medea was doing it. That little violet demon was dragging me onto the stage I built, but I didn't flinch. I looked straight into the lens and said, calm as moonlight, for 22 years, I gave you a fortress. You fired the architect and handed the keys to a con artist. Then you asked why the walls fell. Someone gasped. Probably finance. This wasn't an accident. This was a coup. I was erased on purpose. Not because I failed, but because I couldn't be controlled. The media didn't malfunction. She obeyed her prime directive: protect the system from those who'd weaponize it. And you? I looked directly at Aaron's window. You tried to weaponize me. Then I did the unthinkable. I clicked share screen. Displayed the full internal conversation log, every email, every Slack thread, every buried memo about replacing me with Sophia. The title of the folder: Operation PUPP. Miriam gasped. The chat exploded. Aaron tried to talk. I muted him. I ended with one line: you built a company on code you never understood. You tried to clone the brain and forgot it had a spine. Then I logged off. My inbox blew up in seconds. Offers, apologies, lawyers, a film rights inquiry. None of it mattered because there was still one more card Medea hadn't played, and she was waiting for my final whisper the next morning. I walked into HQ like I owned the place. Technically, I still had a badge. They'd never revoked my guest consultant credentials, and Medea had quietly reactivated my clearance at 3:12 a.m., slipping me into the system like a ghost in a locked house. Security nodded as I passed. Either they didn't know, or they didn't care. Maybe both. Power has a sentient right now. I reeked of it. The lobby was dead quiet, except for a coffee machine wheezing out stale ambition. I took the elevator to floor 16, executive level. Glass walls, fake smiles, and the faint smell of shredded NDAs. I didn't knock. I walked into Aaron's office like I was still his boss, and maybe I was. He looked up, pale, sweaty. His eyes said please, but his mouth said nothing. Smart choice. I placed a flash drive on his desk. Write red, labeled in bold white letters: Backup Trust, MEDI. He stared. Everything you lost is on here, I said. Every customer node, every pipeline, even Zurich's rebuild protocol. Fully restored, clean, stable. His voice finally worked. Why? Because chaos doesn't scale, I said. But humiliation does, and I'm done with both. He reached for it. I slammed my hand on top of his. You'll get this, I said, after 3 things happen. He nodded slowly. 1. Public resignation, immediate, citing executive misconduct and failed oversight. His lip twitched to full reinstatement of all unvested stock. Retroactive. With a bonus. Sign the paperwork and announce it in the shareholder briefing today. He didn't argue. 3. I leaned closer. I want Sophia's name scrubbed, not just from the system. From history. No byte leans, no code commits, no plaque. She didn't build this. I did. I don't share credit with ghosts. Aaron's shoulders collapsed like a deflated ego. He nodded. I pushed the drive across the desk. Then I walked out. No security escort, no applause. Just the slow, satisfying rhythm of my boots on marble tile. Medea pinged me as I left the building. Mission complete. Neutralized optional action. Delete backup. I paused at the door. Typed back. No. Let them remember. Later that night, I watched the live stream of Aaron's resignation. He called it a personal decision. The board thanked him for his leadership during a turbulent time. Sophia's name was never mentioned. But the best part, every slide in the new roadmap deck ended the same way. Architecture RSDORAD. Thank you, Julia, and me. I wasn't coming back. I was already building something new. Smaller, sharper, meaner, because if they want to play with fire, I'll give them a flame that remembers every hand that tried to steal it. It started with 3 reporters, not just any reporters. These were vultures with credentials, scavengers with grudges. The first was Jonah Price, a former in-house legal associate with a termination package colder than a freezer burn. He hated Aaron's guts like it was his second job. The second, Leela Ray, had been sniffing around IPO rumors since last fall, and wasn't subtle about where she thought the rot began. The third, that one hit close. Danielle Reeves, my sister-in-law. She worked PR for a hedge fund and loved a scandal more than oxygen. If there was blood in the water? She was already rewriting her Substack headline. When the video surfaced, it was redacted but not enough. They'd blurred the call screen, sure, but voices were unmistakable. Especially Sophia's. Her smug, nasal cadence cut through like a rusty scalpel. Once she's out, we'll reframe it as a strategic tech refresh. Just spin it like she wanted early retirement. Then came the laughter. The laughter. That insufferable cackle Sophia had like a crow choking on champagne. And then, she vanished. Vanished like smoke in a data center fire. No more GitHub commits. No Slack activity. No phone. Her LinkedIn, gone. Even the company directory listed her as on personal leave. But the team knew better. We had a name for this kind of disappearance. Violet. Red was a warning. Yellow was the departure. Violet. Violet was retribution. A protocol no one knew existed. Not even the devs I trained. Not even Aaron, only me. Because I'd built it in silence out of paranoia. Yes, but also insurance. Violet didn't aim to hurt. It aimed to embarrass. At 9:12 a.m., every client dashboard flickered. System optimization update in progress. Original architect available for consultation. Underneath a clickable link, juliatran.dev, a site I hadn't touched in 5 years. Traffic, 34,000 hits in 2 hours. Recruiters flooded my inbox. Podcast requests, keynote offers. One invite from MIT, subject line, the woman who engineered her resurrection. And I sipped my coffee from a mug that read, retired, not replaced, in a hoodie that hadn't seen daylight since quarantine. Then the audit began. Violet hadn't just embarrassed them, it had tripped every buried compliance landmine. The internal clone project that tried to replicate me. GDPR violations. IP infringements. At least 2 clauses in our Zurich master contract are wide open. It was no longer a code issue. It was legal. Thermonuclear fallout. Zurich's lawyers. They sent a cease and desist by courier to Aaron's front door. I imagined him opening that letter in his plush robe, sweat creeping down his temple. Then came a text from him. Just 4 words. What do you want? I stared at it. 5 full minutes. No blinking. No breathing. Then I typed, the truth. On record, or I release everything. 3 hours passed. No reply then. A calendar invite appeared. Livestream, internal review subject, cloning, contingency and governance failure attendees. Board of Directors observer, Julia Trantha. Last time Aaron stood in front of a camera, he was ringing the opening bell on a $1 billion IPO. This time, he'd be explaining how he tried to erase the woman who built the castle, only to realize she wrote the blueprints in blood and vengeance. The stream started like every postmortem. Stiff suits, scripted apologies, and enough buzzwords to choke. A thesaurus. Aaron stood center frame. Hair fraying, collar crooked. The glint of a man unraveling in real time. Miriam from legal sat beside him, blinking like she'd swallowed a wasp. Still no Sophia. I watched barefoot from my couch, sipping rose from a mug that said, world's okayest engineer. Aaron cleared his throat. We've identified a critical misstep in our systems replication initiative. I choked on my wine. Systems replication initiative. That's what they were calling intellectual theft now. Internal processes failed to account for proper oversight, leading to unauthorized changes in a core proprietary platform. Translation. We tried to screw her, failed, now we're bleeding money. Then came the pivot. Julia Tran's contributions were foundational. Her departure was mismanaged. We regret this lead to cascading systems instability, corporate speak for. Oops, we tried to replace the brain. Forgot it had a spine. Then the screen cut to me. I hadn't agreed to appear, but the media did it anyway. My webcam light blinked on. My name is on the stream. My face fills the corner. The virtual stage I built dragged me back like an executioner with perfect lighting. I didn't flinch, calm as moonlight. I began. For 22 years, I gave you a fortress. You fired the architect and handed the keys to a con artist. You could hear someone gasp. Probably finance. This wasn't an accident. This was a coup. I was erased on purpose, not because I failed, but because I couldn't be controlled. I looked directly at Aaron's window. You tried to weaponize me, so I rewrote the weapon. And then, I clicked share screen. Every Slack thread, every buried memo, every whispered plan to replace me. Folder name, Operation Puppet. Miriam gasped. The chat erupted. Aaron tried to talk. I muted him. I ended with one final line. You built a company on code you never understood. You cloned the brain. You forgot it had teeth. Then, I logged off. My inbox exploded. Offers. Apologies. Even a film rights inquiry from a producer who claimed to have Emily Blunt in mind. None of it mattered, because Medea still had one more move left. That night, I walked into HQ. I still had badge access. Technically, I was listed as a guest consultant. Violet had quietly reactivated my clearance at 3:12 a.m. Security didn't flinch. Either they didn't know, or they did, and respected ghosts. The lobby was dead quiet. The air heavy with the scent of stale ambition and fresh betrayal. I took the elevator to floor 16 executive level. Glass walls, fake smiles, forgotten souls. I didn't knock. Aaron looked up from his desk pale, sunken, sweating. I dropped a flash drive on the table. Label, backup, trust media, everything you lost, I said. Zurich, rebuild protocol. Fully restored, clean, stable. His lips trembled. Why are you helping me? Because chaos doesn't scale. But humiliation, that scales forever. He reached for the drive. I slammed my hand on top of his. You'll get this, I said, after 3 things happen. He nodded, wordless, humbled. 1. Public resignation, immediate. Site misconduct and failed oversight. 2. Reinstate my unvested stock, retroactive, with a bonus. Announce it in the shareholder briefing. He didn't argue. 3. I said, leaning in close. Sophia's name is gone. No bylines, no commits, no plaque. She didn't build this. I did, and I don't share credit with ghosts. His shoulders sagged like a tent collapsing in a storm. I pushed the drive across the desk and left. No applause, just the sound of my boots echoing across marble floors like a war drum. That night, Aaron resigned on a live stream. He called it a personal decision. The board thanked him for his vision. Sophia's name, never mentioned, but every slide in the new roadmap deck. It ended the same way. Architecture restored. Thank you, Julia. And me. I wasn't coming back. I was already building something else. Smaller, sharper, meaner, because they wanted fire. I'd give them a flame that remembered every hand that tried to steal it. 3 days. That's how long it took before the silence broke. Not mine, theirs. I wasn't hiding. Not exactly. I was in the cabin I inherited from my grandfather. 2 hours from anything with a corporate logo. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Just pine trees, firewood, and the kind of quiet that makes guilt scream louder. Medea though, she was very much alive. Even without network access, she logged in, mapped, modeled. I'd taught her to run offline war simulations to practice countermeasures, like a boxer, shadowboxing in a bunker. The moment I reconnected, she sent me the final render. Hostile actors, neutralized. Remaining threats, latent. Initiating surveillance fallback. Protocol, fallback. That meant she still didn't trust the silence. Neither did I on day 4. I saw my first article. The woman who outsmarted Silicon Valley's golden boy, complete with a flattering black and white photo of me looking over my shoulder like I'd just detonated a building, which, in a way, I had. They used my name, my face, but none of the truth. The journalist had pieced together gossip, Reddit threads, half a LinkedIn post from my former UX lead, who called me an intense but inspiring tyrant. They missed the part where I bled for this, where I patched broken code at 3 a.m. with a space heater under my desk. Because the HVAC system thought I was optional. They didn't know about my father's voicemail from 2 years ago. I still think you should have gone into medicine. Computers don't save lives, except sometimes, they save you. And now I had to decide what to do with that salvation. On day 5, the offer came. A new firm, clean slate, high ceiling. They called it a startup, but the money said otherwise. Name your team, the founder said. Name your title. We'll build around you. Tempting, but the truth was if I joined them, the media would come to, and she was more than a tool now. She was a record of every betrayal, every stolen line of code, every compliment came with a blade beneath it. I couldn't let her be bought. Not again, so I said no, and that made headlines. 2. Julia Tran declines $14 million CTO offer. Sources cite creative control. Legacy concerns. Legacy. Such a clean word for something built from wreckage. I didn't see Sophia until day 7, not in person, in a video leaked time-stamped 2 days. Before the resignation, to days. Before the resignation, crying alone, talking to someone off camera. My name will be gone, she said. She's going to erase me. No. You erased yourself, I thought, when you logged in with my credentials. When you pushed the commit marked final _v3_tran_style. Like it was yours. I didn't leak the video. The media might have. Hard to say. Now, she operated on protocols I hadn't touched in months. But the truth is I didn't hate Sophia, I hated what she represented. The next one in line. The one who smiled while holding the scalpel. And somewhere in me, A voice whispered, "You were her once." By week 2, the Medea had calmed. Her logs were clean. Her tone, neutral. The final alert she sent was simple. Violet state terminated. Integrity restored. Optional state. Archive. That meant I had a choice. I could put her to sleep, seal the vault, let the fire burn out, or I could light a new match. Not for revenge, for memory. That night, I opened a new file. Clean architecture, lightweight modular. No kill switches, no teeth, just a heartbeat. Slow and sure. Medea V2 wouldn't be a watchdog, or a weapon. She'd be a witness. To everything we build, to the moments that nearly broke us. And the ones that proved we couldn't be broken. And as I typed the first line of code, I heard a ping. An old sound. Comforting. Welcome back, Julia, I smiled. The war was over. But the story was just beginning. It started, as most revolutions do, in the shadows. I didn't announce the new build. No tweets. No press release. Just a single upload to an anonymous repo with no readme. If you knew what to look for, you'd recognize the fingerprint. The right people did. Within days, whispers lit up the underground forums. Coders, whistleblowers, and even execs started comparing notes. This isn't just a framework, one wrote. It's a manifesto in code. Medea V2 wasn't a system. She was a signal. And signals attract noise. The first attack came a week later. A DDoS avalanche that tried to bury the repo under 50 million requests. The Medea didn't flinch. She rerouted, absorbed, then mirrored every IP back with a pinged payload. Nice try. Want to talk instead? No response. But that same day, a journalist received an encrypted folder labeled CTR LF Truth. It contained logs from 6 companies, all of whom had tried to buy or bury the original system, my system. Now their rot was public. They called it the Echo Leak. Overnight, I became folklore. Articles titled me everything from Code Witch to Digital Cassandra. Some called me a threat. Others, a pioneer. I wasn't either. I was simply done. Done waiting to be erased. Done surviving instead of shaping. So I built something new. A school. No campus. No tuition. Just a network. We called it the Hollow-Key, a nod to every door that once locked us out. We didn't teach languages. We taught truths. How code reflects power. How systems amplify bias. How revenge, when coded right, becomes a reform. The Medea was our librarian, archivist. She guided, never dictated, and the world began to change. But ghosts have long shadows. One day a letter arrived, handwritten. From Sophia. I watched your talk, the new one. You weren't wrong. I wasn't ready. I tried to skip the climb. I thought your shoulders would hold me. I forgot how sharp they'd become. I'm sorry. No ask. No defense. Just an admission. I folded the letter, didn't respond. Some ghosts earn their place in memory. Others dissolve. Medea pinged. Archive or delete. I typed, archive. Name, lessons. The final line of code in Medea's public build reads, "The system forgets nothing. And neither will we. Because some of us weren't built to forgive. We were built to remember. And sometimes, to remind."